Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 235 of the current situation. And today is the first time in about 8 months that the coronavirus pandemic has been pushed off the front pages of newspapers here in Spain, obviously because of the elections in the United States. Everybody curious to see what's going on in that country, and wowee, isn't the situation there heating up. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last videos. Lots of comment, lots of debate happening there as usual. A big thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now let's have a look what's happening here in Spain, and the word confinement is on the tips of everybody's tongue at the moment, as more and more autonomous communities threaten to impose home confinements on the population. However, it's not that easy to do. They need permission from the central government in order to impose these home confinements, and apparently the central government wants to hold off as long as possible before they allow them to do so. As I mentioned yesterday, the Health Minister, Mr. Illa, ruled out the home confinement that Asturias wanted to implement and asked them not to enter a competition. And in the Madrid community, the President, Ms. Ayuso, also ruled out home confinement, saying that it is the last solution. So the Health Minister there saying that he doesn't want the autonomous communities to think that this is a competition. And you do get the sensation that we are in a competition at the moment, that the 17 autonomous communities are competing against each other to see who can get the health situation under control the quickest. And it all leads to a lot of confusion around the country, in my opinion. Very, very difficult to keep up with what's going on in different places around the country at the moment. We can see here, for example, that Castilla and Leon has returned to a drastic state of alarm with the closure of hotels and shopping centres. The official gazette in that autonomous community has included as exceptions the catering services of gas stations, hotels and school canteens, and has established a list of shops that they consider to be first necessity. Aragon has also announced the closure of all non-essential activities and services from 8 p.m. They have taken these measures to avoid the collapse of the ICUs in a situation of extreme risk. And Andalusia has decided to close operating theatres and has relegated non-COVID patients and is preparing hotels for patients as it is facing its worst figures. The Andalusian government will approve this Wednesday a plan to have 10,000 hospital beds, and they have taken 2,500 private hospital beds a day after having broken the record of 3,000 admitted COVID patients. And finally, in the Valencian community, the Generalitat will approve new restrictions due to the coronavirus on Thursday. Current restrictions have not stopped the pandemic and are heading towards confinement. So there we go. All roads seem to be leading towards home confinement here in Spain. But as I said before, it's not that easy. The central government needs to give permission to the autonomous communities before they can implement home confinements in those areas. And as we can see from this headline here, the government has delayed the debate on home confinements for a week. The current decree does not allow this type of confinement, and the government has given itself at least one more week to assess the effect of the measures now in force. The Council of Ministers would have to modify the current decree or even come up with a new one. From the government, all the autonomous communities have been urged to adopt forceful measures that avoid stricter confinements. However, the government does not rule out having to resort to home confinement due to the worsening of the second wave of the pandemic. So the government not completely ruling out home confinement, but they want to wait for the data and see if the health situation is improving as a result of the current restrictions. But as we can see from this headline, the data is not improving. 12 autonomous communities have a higher rate than 500 infections per 100,000 inhabitants. The communities of greatest concern are Melilla, Navarra and Aragon, and these three have a cumulative incidence rate of over 1,000. So the data currently not improving. Now let's have a look at the health situation in Spain, looking at a map of the whole country and various autonomous communities. Starting here with the country as a whole, we can see that the risk level is extreme. We can see the total amount of cases. The accumulated incidence rate of the last 14 days sits at 527.94. There were 832 deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 19,943 COVID patients hospitalized, and there are 2,754 COVID patients in ICUs. We'll take a look now here at Madrid, and we can see that the situation there is also extreme. The total amount of cases, The accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 373.7. 35 deaths in the last 7 days. And we can see hospital pressure. There are currently 2,989 COVID patients in hospitals, and there are 486 COVID patients in ICUs. Asturias now, we can see that the risk level is extreme. We can see the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 420.22. Deaths in the last 7 days, 68. And we can see that there are currently 752 COVID patients in hospital there and 107 COVID patients in ICUs in Asturias. And finally, the Canary Islands, we can see that the risk level there is low. The total number of cases, the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days is 73.33. There have been 11 COVID deaths in the last 7 days, and there are 218 COVID patients currently hospitalized and 44 COVID patients in ICUs in the Canary Islands. Now, the face of the coronavirus pandemic here in Spain, Fernando Simon, landed himself in hot water the other day over some comments in a YouTube interview that many people consider to be sexist. We can see here that he has had to apologize for his comment about nurses. "I have a long way to go to learn and do better," he says. Simon's sexist and humiliating comments directed towards nurses, as they have been described by the Nursing Council and denounced by the Partido Popular, occurred in an online interview on a popular YouTube channel. In it, they asked him if he liked infectious diseases or infectious nurses. So Mr. Simon's comments there being described as sexist and humiliating, just going to show that you can't say anything nowadays without somebody getting offended. Now we'll have a look at some news on the economy. We can see here that unemployment continues to rise in Spain and has grown by 1.31% in October, which means that there are currently 3.83 million unemployed people in Spain. Registered unemployment has increased by 1.31% last October, and that means that there are now 648,000 more people unemployed than a year ago. Spain's second biggest airline company, Air Europa, has fallen on hard times, and the government has given the green light to rescue that company, and they're going to spend 475 million euros to do so. The Council of Ministers approved this Tuesday the rescue of Air Europa with the injection of 475 million euros of public money on account of the new solvency fund destined to support strategic companies that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The operation will be carried out by granting a participative loan of 240 million euros and another ordinary loan of 235 million euros, two instruments included in the regulation of the Solvency Fund. So Air Europa there, the first strategic company to be rescued by the government, and we'll wait and see how many more strategic companies also receive government bailouts. And finally, some news about Spain's former King Juan Carlos. He's in the news again, unfortunately, and we can see here that he is now being targeted by a new investigation. Supreme Court prosecutors will take over a probe reported to involve credit cards used by the ex-monarch after stepping down from the throne in 2014. So the former king there again being targeted, but he's a pretty slippery fish, old Juan Carlos, and I don't think that he's going to lose too much sleep over this new investigation into his finances. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. First one here from Fernando. Australia is in the southern hemisphere. They are going into summer. The sunlight exposure, warm weather and higher humidity help reduce transmission rates and infection severity. Full confinements are irrational because the virus returns as soon as they end. It's also evident Sanchez doesn't have the expert committee. Yeah, Fernando, thanks for the comment. You're right, Australia is going into its summer period. Therefore, the country is starting to open up again. They have got the virus under control apparently. And of course, everybody is looking forward to celebrating a good summer and a good Christmas down there in Australia. Unfortunately, here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're going into the cold winter months. And that's part of the problem regarding the coronavirus at the moment and the saturation in the hospital system. And regarding full confinements, I think the government is trying to do everything in its power to stop a severe lockdown like the one that we had earlier in the year. I think they're going to try for these home confinements, maybe at the weekend, maybe shut down places like bars, restaurants, shopping centres, as we have seen around the country at the moment. We saw the other day that they're going to take different things into consideration this time. For example, mental health. So I'm optimistic that we're not going to be locked down like we were before. We'll probably be able to practice exercise, kids will be able to go to school, people will most likely be allowed to work, but we won't be allowed to socialize with people outside our bubbles. And has Sanchez got an expert committee? I don't know, but I hope so. One here from Michael. It's inevitable as greater restrictions are implemented that particularly young people will get frustrated, but this certainly is no excuse to riot and loot. Everyone has to some extent been affected and will continue to be affected by this virus. We just have to adapt our lives, do whatever is necessary to control the spread, and get on with our lives as best as possible. Things could be a lot worse, and we must not forget the things we have and be grateful for them. Yeah, Michael, thanks for the comment. Unfortunately, it's not only young people that are going to get frustrated with more restrictions. I think a lot of people in the community are going to get frustrated, but of course, not everybody is going to turn to rioting and looting. I think we said the other day that that was a minority. It was only a small group of people that decided to do that, protesting about the curfew, having to be at home by 11 p.m. and obviously a lot of young people not happy about that. And you're right, we just have to adapt. We have to try to get the situation under control, but we also have to live our lives as best we can, start doing what we should be doing to get this virus under control. After all, it does seem to be in our hands, and it's up to each and every one of us to do what we need to do to get this virus under control and perhaps not rely on what politicians tell us to do. One here from GL. Hi Stu, thanks again for the info. I find it incredible how much the job market relies on degrees. I was an IT manager for a big bank in the UK with over 10 years experience in the industry, and the recruiter couldn't comprehend how I was a manager without a degree. Is experience worth nothing in Spain? Yeah, GL, thanks for the comment. The job market here does rely on degrees. It's one of the big problems with it. A lot of companies don't take experience into consideration, and they rely on people having fantastic CVs with lots of degrees, lots of courses under their belt. Languages, of course, also very important. And also what's happened here in Spain, that simply having a degree is not enough to get a job nowadays. As I just said, you have to have a lot of other things on your CV if you want doors to open for you. But that's the job market in Spain, and you'll find a lot of overqualified people working in jobs that don't require qualifications. One here from Travels in a Van. As always, such an informative video. Great to have daily updates from Spain. I, like so many who have property in Spain, want or need to go there, and although lockdowns are very frustrating, the health of wider communities must be protected in some way. A vaccine may come, but it may not. There has never been a vaccine for SARS, which was 14 years ago. It is what it is, and we have to get on with what it brings. Keep up the good work, David. Yeah, David, thanks for the comment. Lots of people in the same boat as you that have property in Spain and want or need to come to the country in order to check on those properties, but unfortunately not easy to do that at the moment. And you're right, we need to protect the health of the wider community. Lots of talk about the vaccine. Will there be one? When will it be ready? Are you going to take it? Are you not going to take it? And it seems to be fairly common knowledge that vaccines are not that easy to develop. So who knows if and when we're going to get one. And you're right, it is what it is, and we just have to deal with the situation. And finally, one here from Roger. Great vlog again, Stuart. You are doing really well to keep them up for so long. Spanish lessons are a great idea. Your accent is perfect for us lazy English to learn Spanish from. Keep them coming. Cheers, Rog. Yeah, Roger, thanks for the comment. I've been talking about Spanish lessons for the last couple of months. I just have to get organized and find the time to do it. My Spanish, of course, is not perfect, but I'm sure that people could learn a thing or two. And of course, when it comes to accent, people here in Spain know immediately that I'm not from this country, but I can make myself understood, and that's the most important thing. And let's be honest, we all speak with acento guiri. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.